There's still a tiny bit of light outside. It's Saturday, and I think it's February 8th, I believe. I think it's the 8th. I just got off work, and it's almost 6 p.m. for me. So I want to do this video, though. Hopefully it helps you a bit, okay? Really want to help people get religion out of them. You know, pull religion, legalism, all this stuff out of you. This God in a box kind of thing, right? John chapter 2. This is the recording of the first miracle that's recorded that Jesus has done. John says so. In fact, if you go to John chapter 2, verse 11, it says, "This beginning of miracles did Jesus in Cana of Galilee." So it's the beginning, or the arche in Greek, beginning, origin, or starting, okay, of the miracle. So what is this miracle? Let's read about it. Verse 1 of John 2. "And the third day there was a marriage in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there," Mary, right? "And both Jesus was called and his disciples to the marriage." So they got invited to come to this wedding celebration, right? Him and his disciples and his mom. "And when they wanted wine, the mother of Jesus said unto him, They have no wine. And Jesus said unto her," Jesus saith unto her, "Woman, what have I to do with thee? Mine hour has not yet come." All right, let's just pause here. When he says, "What have I to do with thee?" This is what it's like he's saying. When you look up the meaning of the words he says, it's like saying, "What business is that of ours? What's that yours and my business? It's not my time yet, Mom," right? Not my time. And she says in verse 5, "Unto the servants, whatsoever he saith unto you, do it." It's almost like she just knew it. She says something, he's like, "It's not my time," but she had faith in him. Whatever he says, do it. She knew something was about to happen, right? By the way, verse 3, go back to verse 3. It says, "And when they wanted wine," this Greek word for wine is used 34 times in the New Testament. It's the Greek word oinos, O-I-N-O-S, oinos, and it always is used for wine. Never for grape juice, always wine. In Hebrew, the word for wine is yayin, but in Greek it's oinos, and all 34 times it's used for wine, which is alcohol. There are people that actually believe that Jesus came in and threw a giant grape juice party. The big old giant grape juice party that Jesus threw. Grape juice for everyone. Is it true? Let's find out what the Greek has to say, the Greek language that this New Testament's written in. Okay, so when it says they wanted wine, by the way, verse 3 still, when they wanted wine. When they wanted is one Greek word, hustereo, H-U-S-T-E-R-E-O. It means when it had all run out. So now that the wine has run out, they didn't want wine because there wasn't any there. There was grape juice. No, the wine, the booze ran out, right? Alcohol ran out. Verse 6, "And there were set there 6 water pots of stone." That is a whole nother video you could talk about, but we're not going to talk about the symbology of that or anything, the meaning of the water pot stone. Just keep on going. "There were 6 water pots of stone after the manner of the purifying of the Jews, containing 2 or 3 firkins apiece." What is a firkin? That's a word that I never heard of, but firkin in Greek is metretes, M-E-T-R-E-T-E-S, metretes. It equals up to 8.75 gallons a piece. So it says they were containing each jar, there's 6 water pots made of stone, 6 of them, In each water pot, there's 2 or 3 8.75 gallons. So if you take 8.75 times it by 2 or 3, you do the math. That's how much water, that's how much room was in each of these things that he had. What? He said, fill the water pots with water in verse 7. That's what Jesus tells his disciples. Fill the water pots with water, and they filled them up to the brim. That's all the way full, you guys. And he said unto them, draw out now and bear unto the governor of the feast, and they bear it. What does he mean, bear unto? Bear means take it. Take it to the governor of the feast, and they took it. When the ruler of the feast had tasted the water that was made wine, he knew not whence it was. Whence means from where. He knew not from where it was. But the servants which drew the water knew. And the governor of the feast called the bridegroom. He said unto him, every man at the beginning does set forth good wine. And when men have well drunk, then that which is worse, then that which is worse. Meaning, okay, I know King James is kind of difficult. Listen. He's saying, usually at the beginning of a party or celebration, people bring the good stuff out, the good alcohol, the strong stuff, the higher quality, top shelf. And then when they have all gotten drunk, now, if you say, and when the men have well drunk, you might think that means if you have the grape juice theology in your head, you're going to think, no, it means they drank a lot of grape juice when they drank to their fill, right? Well drunk, they drunk it. Well, this Greek word for drunk is methuo, M-E-T-H-U-O. It means to drink to intoxication or drunk, as in getting drunk. So you can religious this all you want. You can interpret the way you think. Yeah, he did grape juice, the fruit of the vine. Well, this says in Greek it was wine, and it says they got drunk. They didn't get drunk on grape juice. That's just so ridiculous. When everybody was wasted, well, now you bring the cheaper stuff out after they drank a bunch of grape juice. Now they won't know the difference because they drank too much. Is that stupid? Ridiculous, right? But people have their religious ideas. What is religion? It's putting God in a box, and he's not coming out of that box. If you know stuff about God, you close him in safely in your security of what you know about God, and he's not escaping out of there. God in a box, right? But he made wine that was even better. The alcohol was even a better quality. Jesus comes, people are usually drunk, so you don't give them high quality alcohol if they're already wasted. You bring the cheaper stuff. They won't know the difference. But Jesus made even better quality after people were already intoxicated. Yeah. And it says this was the beginning of his miracles. So, why am I making this video? Because you grace preachers, you like to preach to sin because we're under grace, so sin, sin, sin. Well, let me tell you something, because I'm talking about Jesus, what Jesus did. Did Jesus make wine after people were drunk to encourage them to live a lifestyle of drunkenness? Is that why he did it? See, people today are a lot like they were back then. Wasn't it Jesus that said, listen, John, you know John, the guy, Baptist? John came not eating or drinking, and you still hated him. They still wanted him dead. They couldn't stand him. Jesus comes, Son of Man, eating and drinking, and what do? It's not good enough. They want him dead. Never, never happy. You can come as a goody, moral person, people aren't gonna like you. You can come as a person that they say, look at him breaking all of our religious rules, and they're not gonna like you. Either way, they're not gonna like you, right? So, Jesus if they said he came eating and drinking, well, I imagine that Jesus must have been seen having wine with his food once in a while, right? I'm assuming that. So was Jesus saying, listen, get drunk all you want, it's good for you? But then that contradicts Paul, Paul who says, hey, drunkenness, be sober-minded, don't be drunk, Another thing that Paul does, though, is that Greek word for wine, Paul tells Timothy, hey, stop just drinking water, drink a little bit of that wine, it's good for your stomach. And he wasn't saying grape juice either. He used that same word for wine. All right. So what do we do with this? Am I here to say, hey, now that we're under grace, get wasted all you want? Because Jesus, he made high quality wine after people were drunk, so he's encouraging drunkenness. Okay, would you agree with me that we need to get back past tradition thinking, tradition all the time? People that have the tradition of Jesus served grape juice, I've heard it from plenty of preachers. I know plenty of preachers that speak highly against even having alcohol touch your lips, right? Because they don't drink it, so everybody else shouldn't have it either. Which, if they're preaching that stuff, that means if you look at somebody having a glass of wine, you get invited to somebody's house calls themselves a Christian or a believer, and they're like, hey, would you like a glass of wine? Would you like to have a beer with your dinner? Well, your preacher says they're against wine or any form of alcohol, so you better not touch alcohol. So if you look at others drinking alcohol, you might be quickly offended. And unfortunately, people that are quickly offended like that are very immature in their thinking. They're very, very immature. So I want to help encourage you that if you do know somebody that's a believer and they are having wine with their food or whatever they're doing, or they have a wedding celebration, and in that reception there's an open bar, well, you might not want to go because you're religiously offended. Or maybe somebody in your family had an alcohol problem, so it makes you very sensitive to alcohol. You see how things can work. Somebody in your family was an alcohol abuser, so now you're sensitive to alcohol, so now you go around judging anybody that has alcohol because you were affected by it, so you're against it, and everybody should be thinking your way. I agree. If somebody is very sensitive, you don't want to offend them, so you might not want to drink around them. Like one day, I had people over. I invited people over to have, in a home, we were in a house, to have some fellowship, right? You don't have to meet in a building. You can meet whenever you want, wherever you want. You are a walking church. So it's not the building, it's you. So when you meet up with other people, you're churching together. So I had some people meet up and I wanted to do communion with them, right? Partake of the bread that represents Jesus' body, partake of the wine that represents his blood. Now I didn't have grape juice, but I did have red wine. And I put little bits of red wine in shot glasses, not to take shots. Like, hey, let's do shots, you guys. But a little bit of bread and a little bit of red wine, and we bless it and partake. But one guy comes over, extremely legalistic, extremely hypersensitive and offended. Wait a minute. Isn't a pastor supposed to be blessing this thing? And aren't they supposed to be handing out the emblems? I said, no. And he says, well, is this bread unleavened? And I said, no. And he says, is this real wine? Yeah. And he says, that's alcohol. Bible says alcohol is a sin. Now, I could have gotten an argument, and I could have taken him into the scriptures and showed him, really, then tell Jesus what a sinner he was, because he gave alcohol to a bunch of drunk people. It says it, we read it in Greek, they drank to intoxication, and then he provides better quality stuff. Now, the religious mind says Jesus was throwing a giant grape juice party. Other religious voices will say, well, Jesus wasn't the one throwing the party. He wasn't. Somebody else threw the party. He was invited. Okay. Well, I like the title. I like the title. When Jesus threw the giant grape juice party. I think I like that, so I think I'm going to use that. All right. Let me just tell you something else. This is a side note. Because of tradition. You notice I read from the King James. It's a big Bible. Somebody gave me a gift, and it's got lots of bigger spaces, margins in there, so I can take a lot of notes in there and write. And I'll use whatever Bible translation because I back things up with Hebrew and I back things up with Greek. But King James, there's a lot of people that are only King James, and if you don't use King James, they're offended by you because King James was inspired by God. And I don't know if they think King James is the James that you see in the Bible, and they kind of confuse that. No, he's James. James wrote it, King. Well, do you actually know one thing? When King James made his translation, there was something that was discovered, that the name James in the Bible actually doesn't exist. It's in our translations. And when King James had his translation with his name on it, King James, that's his translation, he didn't have something in the Bible corrected, even though he knew the truth about it. The truth is, the book of James, the one that Peter, James, and John that Jesus went on the mountain with and they saw Moses and Elijah, that James, the half-brother of Jesus, the one that writes about faith without works is dead, don't be a hearer of the word, be a doer as well, James. His name is actually Jacob, Jacob in Hebrew. And no, James is not the Greek form of the Hebrew name Jacob. In fact, in Greek, it is still very similar to Jacob. It means Jacob. So there is a Bible book of Jacob, just like there is a Bible book of Yeshua, or Jesus. It's called Joshua. And Joshua in the Old Testament is the same exact spelling of Yeshua. So you can call it the book of Jesus or the book of Yeshua. We have Joshua. That's not incorrect. That's the English form of Yeshua, right? Joshua, we say Jesus because we get it from Greek. But anyway, tradition says it's James. James is the book. And King James really liked that there was a name that was his name. So he decided to keep it there because he wanted his name to be in the Bible. Very, very humble, right? Let's not keep it the original. Too bad, because names have meanings. I always teach about the meaning of names, and it's very powerful. And there's significance with the meanings of names. So it's actually Jacob. But you're going to hear me talk about James. I'll use the Bible book of James because it says it in all of our Bibles, unless you just so happen to have one that says it correctly, Jacob. But do you see what I talk about tradition? Tradition gets passed on, and if you don't do your own homework and research, you might believe something. By the way, it's not a salvation issue to say the name James if you're sharing the book of James with somebody. It's not a salvation issue, so don't worry about it. I'm just telling you. Now, back to the giant grape juice party that so many people believe that Jesus had given, right? I mean, he provided it, so let's just say he threw the party because he made it even greater. Can you imagine this, by the way? You're at a wedding that has an open bar, you're at the reception, and you want to have a margarita, let's say. All right? And please don't be offended, I'm saying margarita. That's religion coming up. It's coming up. It wants to come out of you. And you want to use... No, push religion away. Tell it to go. All right, so somebody is in the mood for a margarita. You had one margarita, you want one more. So you go up to get a margarita, and the person hands you a cup, and it looks like a margarita, and you drink it, and it's pure lime juice. But these limes are organic. There's been no pesticides in these limes. It's the best tasting limes ever. You wanted a margarita, and you're intoxicated already with margarita, and then they hand you this lime juice and you take a sip and you say, oh my goodness. Usually they give you the lime juice in the beginning, this wonder, but you bring it at the end. It's even better than that margarita I had. It's lime juice. So organic, fresh fruit. I can taste the organic in it. No pesticides, thank you. This is the greatest lime juice ever. Can you imagine that? See, the religious mind says that Jesus made them the best grape juice they ever had after they had drank all the other grape juice. But that word drank isn't drank, it's drunk. It means intoxicated. Not with grape juice, but with wine or alcohol. Once again, is this video about, now that we live in grace, I'm encouraging drunkenness? No. This is what it's about, you guys. It's to help break you of religious legalism. It's to help break you of condemning and judging others because of what you still have locked in your mind that you think is truth when it's actually not the truth. It's amazing when you discover the truth that you believed was actually a lie. I discovered the truth that I believed was actually a lie, and I believed truth that I thought was truth for 30 years. Imagine that. But it ends up all being a lie. When I discovered that the Jehovah's Witnesses religion I was born and raised in was not the truth at all, even though they labeled their religion as the truth, it wasn't. It was a lie. So I had a mind change. And changing our minds is great for you. It develops your mind. It's like you've got a muscle up there and you can develop it, right? By changing it. Set your mind on the truth. Quit setting your mind on the lie. Quit trying to make excuses for God. I better make God look like he only made grape juice. You know, you see the Father, you see me. So Jesus comes, makes grape juice because you have to make him how you morally think he should be. Let God be God. Let Jesus be Jesus. He turned water into wine, alcohol. And the ruler or the governor of this wedding festival says, usually he's blown away because this is the best tasting stuff he ever had. And he says, usually what happens is they will start with the high quality, top shelf alcohol in the beginning. And then when people get intoxicated off of that, you bring the cheaper stuff out because they're not going to know any better anyway. Now they're drunk, so give them the cheap stuff, right? Otherwise it gets way expensive. Bartenders know all about that. But this guy says, but instead, the higher quality stuff was brought out after everybody was drunk and he was blown away by it. Now, here's what I want to share with you, is that there is a time and place for things, isn't there? There's a time and a place for things. Driving a car while intoxicated, although some people think that they drive better when they've had a few, and I have heard that from plenty of people in my life. I drive way better when I have a few. I'm way more relaxed. I drive better. In fact, I see a red light and I'm so relaxed. I can drive through the red light. I don't need to stop at it. I'm just chill when I'm drinking. There's actually people that think that way, right? I've heard it. I had a guy tell me that he was so mad because he comes into my business. I'm a hairstylist and I was cutting his hair and I hadn't seen him for a while, and he's like, came in and he says, I got out of jail. And I said, really? And he says, yeah, he threw me in jail for wrong reasons. I'm like, what happened? Like, I'm thinking he got framed for something. He says, he says, they got me for driving under the influence, DUI. He says, but the law says you're not allowed to drink and drive. He says, but I was driving and drinking, and there's a difference. He really, really meant this, you guys. He was serious. He says, you see, drinking and driving means you get drunk, and then you get in your car, and you drive behind the wheel after you got drunk. He says, but driving and drinking is you get in your car, you're sober, you open up a bottle of vodka, and then you start drinking it while you're driving. And then when you get to your destination, then you're drunk, but you were safe because you didn't get drunk till after you got there. And that was his excuse. And he believed he was right. He believed he was unjustly arrested. I'm not kidding. A time and place, you guys. Here's another one. If you think alcohol is going to help you with depression, well, I'm depressed. I got a job I hate, so I get home. I slam down a couple bottles of booze. I pass out. I go to bed. It helps me sleep. I'm depressed. I need help sleeping. Well, do you think that when you are sleeping, that depression says it's time to exit this person because they just solved the problem? Alcohol chased me away. Or do you think the root of depression is still there? Do you think that root is still there? You got to deal with the root. Now, I'm not condemning anybody right now saying I'm not telling you don't drink alcohol before bed, don't get. I'm not telling you, I'm not your moral coach. And I'm surely not going to be that splinter in the eye inspector, right? The speck in the eye inspector. Oh, look at you, got a speck in the eye, you got a speck in the eye. I'm the inspector of the specks in the eye, when actually I have a tree in my own eye. Pointing out everybody else's tiny little splinter they got in their eye, but I got a tree in my eye, right? That's hypocrisy. I'm not going to do that. But what I am going to say is alcohol is not going to solve your depression problem. And if you're fighting with your spouse, alcohol is not going to calm the fight down. It's going to intensify it, trust me, okay? So there's a lot of things that maybe we need to change our minds about, but there is a time and place for things, isn't there? And when you are celebrating, like Jesus went to a celebration, now that's a time he's showing. This is the time, this is the place, right? It's a celebration. And I'm sure after everybody got drunk, they called an Uber ride back then and got an Uber, and the Uber drove them home so they wouldn't be drunk in public and all that kind of stuff. Or maybe they got a Lyft, all right? So just to ease your mind. So let me just share something with you, which the Holy Spirit is showing me right now. I'm seeing something in my mind called CPR. Do you know what CPR is? Let's say somebody's at the beach in the ocean, and they got taken out by a wave, and they're underwater for a long time, and they were panicking, and they took a deep breath underwater, but they didn't take a breath. Their lungs got filled with water, and now they're choking, and they pass out. Somebody runs out there, grabs this person, drags them to shore, starts doing these compression presses, trying to get that water out of their lungs so they'll cough it up. And then they do this thing where they blow into their mouth. They tilt their head back, blow into their mouth so that these people can get a breath in their lungs, right? Get air in their lungs. And they do the compressions again, trying to get them to cough up that water. And then they're performing CPR. You get it? There is a time and a place for CPR. That was the time and the place. But now let's use a different illustration. You're at the beach. Oh, you see somebody very, very attractive jogging by. Quite stunning. So you jump up, you run behind them, you tackle them into the sand, you turn that person around, and you start doing CPR on their mouth. Blowing into their mouth. I mean, you're at the beach. Isn't that the place for CPR? It's a great time in your head because you're really attracted to them. That's a great excuse for you to put your mouth on them, right? So you start performing CPR. I guarantee you, if it's a female and you're a dude doing that, she's going to slap you right in your face, dude. And you're going to be in big trouble. The law might even take you, right? Because you just crossed the line. It was not the time or the place. You thought so. It's a perfect opportunity for me. I'll just use CPR as an excuse. I was trying to save your life. No, I wasn't drowning. Do you understand? I can just imagine it. All right, so I really hope you get this. You get it. I don't know why today was the time to make this video, but I think it was because somebody and I were talking about Jesus making the water into wine miracle, and how Mary, had a part in that, and everything said. And I had told that person, people think Jesus threw a giant grape juice party, and I actually thought that would make a great video. And so here it is, and I hope it has blessed you. I hope you don't believe that this grace preacher is encouraging alcoholism. Then you should believe that Jesus, who came full of grace and truth, as John says he did, that Jesus, I hope you don't believe Jesus was encouraging drunkenness, alcoholism. You got to be balanced, you guys, and get religion out of you, get judging everybody out of you, condemning others out of you, right? Try to chill. Try to mature your thinking as well. But for those of you that believe in the giant grape juice party, you have been believing wrong, sorry to say. We just proved it with the Greek. And so what you choose to do with your life, I hope this doesn't encourage you to turn into an alcoholic or something like that, because you never want something to possess you, to control you, to lead you around. You want to be led by the Spirit, don't you? Of course you do. Don't let anything be your master, right? Not at all. All right, you guys, I love you. I hope this has blessed you. And I'll see you on the next video.